Hello and welcome to Access Asia. I'm Yuka. Coming up in this edition, the fall of the Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad has sent shockwaves beyond the Middle East. So what's next for his allies in Asia? As artificial intelligence grows in leaps and bounds, the Philippines has emerged as a major data annotation hub. We take a look at how cheap labor is helping accelerate the global tech revolution. And meat from a fin whale caught off the coast of Japan fetches a whopping €1,200 per kilo at the country's first auction of this species in nearly 50 years. The dramatic turn of events in Syria, where rebels captured key cities and toppled Bashar al-Assad's regime within days, could reshape the balance of power in the Middle East and have far-reaching repercussions. The deposed dictator has been ostracized by most of the world since 2011, but kept some key allies, including China and India. Both have cautiously responded to his ousting, mostly focusing on evacuating their citizens safely out of the country and calling for a peaceful political process. But they have their own concerns about what the future holds for Syria. For more, I'm joined in the studio by France 24's Luke Shrago. Hi, Luke. So China had been forging closer ties with Mr. Assad. How might the regime change then impact Beijing's Middle East strategy?
Well, we've seen that Beijing has been trying to expand its influence in the Middle East, and for Beijing, Syria has been an enormously important part of that. We've seen China involve itself brokering truces between Palestinian groups like Hamas and Fatah and other rivals. We've seen them mediating between Iran and Saudi Arabia in re-establishing the diplomatic ties there. Now, for Beijing, it's more about engaging with an axis of resistance to the West. We've seen it backing Russia at the UN Security Council and protecting Bashar al-Assad's regime. And we also know how important the Middle East is on the whole for China's energy needs. Bashar al-Assad himself, he met with Xi Jinping in 2023 in Beijing. That was about forging a strategic partnership where Xi said that he would be supporting Syria, that he would help with Syrian reconstruction and beyond that, strengthen its capacity over what was referred to as terrorism. Now, in terms of reconstruction, that was obviously a reference to China's Belt and Road Initiative. China's been wanting to build infrastructure and invest heavily in infrastructure all around the world. But we also know that China is enormously pragmatic. It's always prioritized its strategic priorities and economic interests over anything such as ideology or even human rights issues. So it seems likely that that Beijing will be very happy to continue engaging with whatever new authorities and government emerge over the next few weeks and months.
So while China's approach has been much more nuanced, India has historically had a much deeper ties with Syria. So has New Delhi lost a good friend in the region then?
Indeed, we know that Indian ties with Syria ran a lot deeper than they did with China. Bashar al-Assad's father, Hafez al-Assad, had deep ties to India as well, and Syria has in fact constantly supported India over a whole host of issues throughout the years and decades, particularly over Kashmir. Now, that's been a huge deal for New Delhi. Whereas most Arabic nations more traditionally aligned with India's arch rival Pakistan, it's been this huge deal for India, and in turn we've seen India invest deeply in the Syrian economy. Now, trade has receded somewhat in recent years, but we've still seen New Delhi pouring in an awful lot of development aid and humanitarian assistance to Syria. It's also invested particularly in Syria's energy sector. India, of course, is one of the largest buyers of Syrian oil in the world. Now, with these new authorities, the HTS, we know that they are close to Turkey, which is itself close to Pakistan, and we have to look at the pedigree of these new authorities too. The HTS was once an offshoot of al-Qaeda, and while it's been attempting to distance itself from those roots, there are still concerns in the corridors of power in New Delhi. Now, we looked at the Taliban in Afghanistan. They made similar promises when they took over the country in 2021, and we saw what happened to them. So this is a message that for India has not fallen on deaf ears. If the Taliban can kick out the United States after 20 years, if the HTS can oust Bashar al-Assad in under 2 weeks, they're asking themselves, what might militant groups in Kashmir be able to accomplish if they were so minded? And that's an area where we have already seen a surge in violence.
Meanwhile, North Korea, a fellow pariah on the international stage, has been increasingly reliant on Russia and Iran. So their apparent withdrawal of support for Assad in the final days of his regime has been quite alarming for Pyongyang, I guess.
Indeed, Pyongyang has always looked at Syria as one of its most important partners in the Middle East. The Kim and Assad families have been close over each generation, and they cooperated not just militarily, but in areas of technology as well. There was US intelligence indicating that it was actually North Korea that helped Syria build its nuclear reactor at al-Kibar around about 20 years ago. And that reactor was destroyed by Israel in 2007, reportedly with the deaths of North Korean scientists. Now, for North Korea to see two of its main allies, Iran and Russia, abandoning another, it's hard not to see it as being alarmed. Of course, we know Russia was tied up in Ukraine, and Iran has been weakened over the last year plus with the conflict with Israel. Now, neither had the resources to come to a beleaguered and weakened Syria's aid. So we also have to remember that North Korea, in its own turn, has enormously focused on this idea of self-reliance for defence, and it seems likely that that view is only going to be reinforced.
Well, Luke Shrago, thank you so much for your analysis. Now, behind the spectacular learning curve of artificial intelligence are real humans, not just computer programmers and chip developers, but data annotators who label and tag vast amounts of images and text to help AI learn to recognize them. In recent years, the Philippines has emerged as a major outsourcing hub for global industries, providing large numbers of low-paid skilled workers to do the job. Camille Knight and Angelique Forget report.
When you think about AI, it's easy to imagine an abstract world made of mysterious algorithms. It's easy to forget how essential humans are in feeding data to AI systems to teach them how to behave. The Philippines have become a hotbed of specialists in that area. Tens of thousands of young people work day and night feeding artificial intelligence systems. This student in computer science is one of them.
Welcome to our house, and this is my room.
He's chosen to speak anonymously because his contract doesn't allow him to talk to journalists. For €30 a month, he works 7 hours a week for one of the US's biggest AI firms. On this 3D map, he's helping a driverless car recognize its environment.
Yeah.
Okay.
You see the points of the tree here?
Translated into a data points that the machine learning algorithm can learn, that the AI can learn.
It's a task that requires speed and focus.
Because I play video game, I have a good coordination between my eyes and my hand. With the money I earn, I can help my mom pay some bills.
In Manila, one entrepreneur has decided to make a business out of this activity.
Welcome to Flipside. So these are the humans that teach AI in the learning loop.
300 employees work full-time, annotating data for driverless cars and trains, but also for the medical and agricultural sectors. It's a job that doesn't require a degree, but a great deal of precision.
For being an annotator, all you need to do is to focus on your work.
If we make some mistakes, also the AI make mistakes.
They're paid around $260 a month, slightly below the national average. But the founder of the agency sees data annotation as a great opportunity for the Philippines.
We're very proud of contributing to the development of AI. And at the same time, we can provide employment to young people who otherwise might not be able to find a better job.
But some data annotators say they make less than $3 an hour, even though the companies they work for make millions of dollars from these projects. They say their contribution is essential to these firms and are calling for a pay rise.
In Japan, meat from fin whales fetched as much as 200,000 yen or 1,200 euros per kilogram at the first auction of this species in decades. Commercial whale hunting was suspended in Japan in 1976, but was resumed after the country pulled out of the International Whaling Commission 5 years ago. Although the whale meat industry stretches back thousands of years, it's become highly controversial and demand has dwindled in recent years. Aurore Chloé Dupuis explains.
A fishmonger proudly holding his new fin whale certificate. It's official. The species can be sold legally in Japan. For the first time in 50 years, fin whale was sold at an auction. More than 1,200 euros a kilo, a high price for a tradition that stretches back thousands of years and that some Japanese are keen to keep alive. This restaurant in Tokyo specializes in the delicacy.
This is whale heart, and it's quite chewy. The texture is not like sashimi or regular meat. It's different but delicious.
Whale meat was once a more affordable source of protein in Japan, especially during the malnourished years after World War II. But now many wonder if it's worth killing the mammals at all.
Unless it's profitable, it can't be economically viable. Today, whale meat is more expensive than beef or other types of meat.
On average, the Japanese now eat whale meat 100 times less than in the 60s. Despite this, and fin whales being a vulnerable species, Japanese authorities recently gave the green light to hunt them again, along with 2 other types of whales, saying they have enough evidence showing that they are no longer at risk. The head of Japan's biggest whaling company is on a mission to make whale meat popular again, selling it in vending machines.
You French people might see us as villains, but it's because you aren't informed enough. Even if we continued whaling at this rate for 100 years, the overall whale population would stay the same.
Japan is one of 3 countries, along with Iceland and Norway, that practice commercial whaling.
And finally, it was a dream come true for Gukesh Domaraju. The Indian team became the youngest world chess champion after beating the defending title holder Ding Liren of China in this year's tournament on Thursday. At just 18, he comfortably surpassed the previous record held by Garry Kasparov, who won the title at the age of 22 back in 1985. Long been considered a rising star in the chess world after becoming a chess grandmaster when he was only 12, Domaraju is now the 2nd Indian ever to hold the prestigious title. And that's it for this week's Access Asia. Do stay tuned for more world news here on France 24.